Hi, this is Karen back with Karen Codes, and I just wanted to show you really quick on this little snippet photo here what the memory game will look like that we're going to build together. So now granted, this image is cut off and it'll look better than this, but you basically have 4 rows of 4 images, and each image, there's a total of 8 images, so pictures, but each one repeats once. So there's 2 copies of each of the 8 items. So what you're going to do is Google, and you can see here the honeycomb, yellow honeycomb. That's the backs of the cards, and the front would be the flower. And so for your game, actually you're going to want to choose 9 images. You're going to want to choose the image for the back of all the cards, and then you're going to want to choose 8 images for the fronts of the cards. And then in the game, there's a total of 8 matches based on having the doubles of each card item. And so instead of doing it out of flowers and honeycomb, for the game I'm showing you today, I'm going to show you a Christmas version of it. And so, and you can see this is what it looks like when all the matches are, and again, this is a very cut off version. Sorry about that, it's a WordPress issue, but yeah, I have a few more programs on my blog here that we won't go into right now. So, but I wanted to show you a couple of other things first before we get started. So to create a new program with GUI, we're going to use inheritance, and when we did our kind of boring, plain old person class, we could have created different kinds of people. Like we could have done a student, and they would have a GPA, and they, as one of their attributes or properties, they'd have a first name, last name, just like person, so they'd inherit that. But yeah, the GPA would be unique to them, as student number would be unique to them. But you could have them inherit from person class. And you do that using a keyword in Java that is known as extends. And I started writing a new version of the memory game here. I made a new package, and you can do that with File, New, and then go to Java Project. And then within that, I right-clicked on that, and I said New, and I said Package, or excuse me, I said Source Folder. And that got me this memory game. No, actually, I just did package. Okay, so that got me the memory game package, and I just used camel case to capitalize the G. And then I created, so far, 2 classes. And I'm not just doing this randomly. I wanted to show you something called a UML diagram. But first, I got to show you the basic components of the memory game. It's very much like a web page. You have the window, the basic window of your website that you're visiting, and that would be called JFrame. And it's the component that other components stack on top of, because that's what you're doing with GUI, you're stacking. And so this next box that I'm stacking on top, this next component, is called a JPanel, and that's what the memory game would have. And then here at the top of the JFrame or window, you have your title bar, which is just like right here in Word, this part up here, title bar. And it has a little X to close it, a little line to minimize it, and then your program would have an icon if you chose. If you didn't choose one, the icon defaults to the little Java cup, or you can do your own personalized one. And that's what we're going to do for this program. And then down below on the JPanel, you can think of the JPanel as sort of your table. If you were playing a memory card game, you need some kind of flat surface. It could be your floor, a table, a desk, whatever, but you need that surface, and that's what your JPanel is, that stacks on top of the JFrame. And then on top of that, you would stack your cards. And for the purpose of this game, since we can't shuffle the cards and spread them out with our hands, what we're going to do instead is make a grid of what's called a J button. And the reason we're using a JButton as opposed to a JLabel or something else is because the JButton has an event listener, and that event listener is going to record the number of times a button or picture gets clicked, because the basic way you play the memory game is you click on a picture, or the back of a picture, because all the card backs are facing up at the start, and you click on the back and then you click on another one on the back, and they both appear. They show you their pictures, and then if they match, they stay facing image side up instead of card back, and if they don't match, they turn back over to the back. And I'm going to show you how we do that. But before we got started, I just wanted to show you like the basic plan, and this is a good way to help organize your project before you get started. You can code as you go along, but it's not very organized way to do it, and you can introduce a lot of bugs and problems down the line when you don't plan ahead. So this is kind of helpful. And then you can use what's called a UML diagram. And that helps you keep track of the different classes within your project and the attributes of each class. And ours is going to have at least 4 classes. It's going to have a card class, which, as I mentioned above, is going to be a JButton. And I will show you on, if you Google Java SE8 and you Google JFrame, it'll show you kind of this whole inheritance idea. So JFrame inherits from frame, which inherits from window, from container, component, and ultimately object. So this is all with inheritance. So JFrame gets the various properties and classes of its parents as specified. And you can see that this is the javax.swing. And before we've worked with just the java.lang or java.awt. And it just kind of tells you which library or API that this class comes from. And within JFrame, there's certain properties that it has. It has fields, which is kind of like we did for our people class. There's an integer that's exit on close, and we need that to close our window. And there's a boolean that I've never used, but you could. And there's fields that it inherits from the frame and from component. It tells you throughout this entire page all the details about it. And you don't need to use everything that's on the page. It just gives you information. And our JFrame, we just construct it like this. We don't use these constructors here, at least not for this project. And then down here, these are the methods that come with it. And we will be using a few of them, which I'll get to in the project. But that's just kind of a quick overview of planning ahead for a project. And we'll add to these UML diagrams. This plus sign here means that it's a public method. And the method is a constructor. So it says constructor. But down here, for example, on the JFrame, the set size, now normally you probably wouldn't put the values in your UML diagram, but I planned it out ahead of time, and that's the size I want, and it's in pixels, so that's why that's in there. And resizable I put to false, and I'll explain why as we get into it, and what each of these means. But that's just kind of a quick overview of what we're going to do, the game plan, and kind of the step-by-step. And down here is the main class that kind of makes it all happen. So each video will kind of go through a class at a time, and we'll do incremental development, which means piece by piece and testing in between to make sure it works. And we'll come up with a fun Christmas memory game or whatever theme you choose. Thanks for watching.